Into it. Welcome to the next episode of SD-WANsday. Thank you everybody for joining. This session is being recorded as mentioned, and there's a transcript on as well. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. I'm just going to pass straight over to Chris and Chris's team, and we'll go from there. Over to you, Chris.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Holly. We've got a small audience today, so anyone that's on the call, feel free to unmute and interrupt us whenever you like. It's as you know from the last session, this is a new format for us, something we're trialing. We've taken all your feedback on board from the last session. It was rushed, and we felt rushed doing it as well. So we're gonna handle this slightly differently again, and we'll keep tweaking them as we go along. But with this one being such a smaller audience, as I mentioned, feel free to take yourselves off mute, interrupt us, chat with us. We're happy to discuss whatever you like. We do have a list of questions. A few people have sent questions in and said they can't attend the event today, so we'll run through those questions and we'll answer them best we can. We're not going to present with a PowerPoint like we did last time, so we'll just handle it slightly differently. You've got myself, Shoaib and Gahan on the call, obviously. So I'll kick off with the first question, I guess. So the first one we had come in was, well, there's a few, but we've grouped them into one. So it's basically, can SD-WAN, or is SD-WAN more reliable than Mpls? And it's actually quite incredible how often this comes up. And SD-WAN's been around for quite a while now, but still people have this misconception that SD-WAN is reliable. SD-WAN is not a form of transport. It's not a form of carriage. Like SD-WAN is an overlay. So SD-WAN does not make does not make the carriage any. It doesn't change the inherent protocols of the carriage. It doesn't make it any more stable. So the carriage is the carriage. If you've got a poor quality link and another poor quality link and another poor quality link, and you put SD-WAN over the top of those, that doesn't make the quality better. We constantly get asked, I want to replace Mpls with SD-WAN. You cannot replace Mpls with SD-WAN. It doesn't work like that. So SD-WAN sits over the top. You can replace Mpls with internet. That's no problem. But you've been able to do that for years. So what kind of SD-WAN will do for end users is it will allow you to change the way that you interact with those types of technologies. So traditionally, for an Mpls solution, you'll deploy an active link and a backup link. Let's say you've got a 1 gig active link and a 100 meg backup link, and they're configured in an active standby failover type using VRRP with a couple of routers or something like that. What SD-WAN allows you to do is make those links active, so you get a better return on investment, and you're going to be able to. It's a bit like in the olden days, it's a bit like an insurance policy, right? Having an active standby link. So you pay for this backup link and you can never use it. It's not there, but it will also only kick in if the link fails. So if you get degradation, if you get poor quality, if you get high jitter, high latency, your backup link's not going to take over. So you're still using this poor quality link, you get a poor experience. SD-WAN allows you to eliminate that. So you can set up least cost routing and say if jitter reaches these levels, if latency gets to this, send traffic over this link. You can go primary link, secondary link, tertiary link. You can have them all active at the same time. And SD-WAN gives you the smarts and kind of intelligent connectivity, which is our lifecycle service. That really allows you to use the same core network, so the same Mpls, the same internet, whatever it is, but use them intelligently. So and that's where SD-WAN really comes into its own. So you cannot simply say SD-WAN is more reliable than Mpls because it's quite simply not, and they're not comparable. So there's hopefully not too much of a long-winded way of answering that question. And I think based on that, we can probably hand over to Shoaib. Is it you now? Shoaib? Yeah. Have you got anything else to add on that, boys? Did I miss anything out?
I think you covered pretty much, just on that one. I guess having that multiple links, for failover, that always is one of the key challenges that every business has, right? Yeah. Obviously, it's not about failover we're talking about. It's about using paths redundantly. Like all of them are active links. You are paying for multiple links, obviously, and you need to be able to use them. Yeah. As you go. So based on the applications, most of the requirements have been shifted from a basic network point of view into more like application point of view. Now most of the apps lives in SaaS applications, or either in cloud environments, right? So there's limited traffic that goes into your hub or data center at this stage. So yeah. There are various use cases, but having active links, which can be actively monitored, for jitter, latency, that gives a better experience for most users. So, for example, it could be ServiceNow as an example, right? Most platforms, can identify that application as a traffic itself, like an application that needs to be prioritized. Traditional way of doing things was using QoS policies or marking on the SCP, which is painful because you have to do marking on various different endpoints in the network. So when you go into the modern way of automating these kind of steps, having SD-WAN helps because you have the application recognition on top. So it'll do all the application-based routing, on top, which is intelligent, which is not a manual thing to do. So yeah, that's something. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to pause for a second and I've noticed there's a couple more people that have joined the call. So for those that have come in a little bit late, we took on some feedback from the first session, and this is more of an open forum. We are still answering the questions that we did receive. But if anyone has any questions, you can raise your hand in the Teams chat or just jump in now. Feel free to do that. So just wanted to let everybody know.
Thanks.
I think Liz, you've got a question.
Yeah. So you were just talking about redundancy within the SD-WAN, and we're rolling it out in my organisation. And the 2 sites that we've moved on to SD-WAN, we've had issues with the redundant links. So we've had issues with the gateways flapping. So for me, Mpls, either the network's up or the network's down. But with SD-WAN, it seems to. Maybe it's a setting within the gateways that's the problem, or
that's a really interesting one. So again, MPLS, you can do SD-WAN with just MPLS links, right? So you can have 4 MPLS links and still run SD-WAN over the top. It doesn't. If you've got links, if it's the actual link flapping, then that problem would be there whether you had SD-WAN or not.
Okay.
So that sounds like it's a fundamental issue with the link itself. But happy to take that offline and have a chat with you if you like. And
cool. I just for me as a project manager, because I'm a transition manager, so I manage the transitions. I just need to, I guess, the reason my boss is sending me here, so I understand how SD-WAN all hangs together. But the little bit that I've done, the 2 sites that I've done, it just hasn't been great.
Well, to your point, I mean, you mentioned that MPLS is either on and off. One of the main reasons of having SD-WAN is not to take decision based on whether it's on and off. I mean, there might be, many factors to the problem where you have links flapping, but imagine you could take a decision based on many factors rather than the link is up or down, because a link up is not necessarily a good quality link. So the ability
I think that's
So
I think that's been the issue that it hasn't been able to build the tunnel.
I've got a funny feeling, Liz. I think what might be happening here, and this is very common. This is not unique to what you're experiencing here. People that don't really understand SD-WAN think that they can go from, like, say, tier 1, let's say a big tier 1 telco carrier, they're paying a lot of money per month for MPLS links, and they think, I can pull out all these MPLS links, which there is nothing wrong with MPLS, right? We're not SD-WAN's not here to get rid of MPLS, but what they pull out these big expensive links and think, I'm just going to put residential cheapest links I can find, I'll put them in. It's going to save me a lot of money, and SD-WAN will make these cheap residential links really good. Doesn't work like that. That's the disconnect a lot of people get. So what you could do is you could either downscale the MPLS, keep the MPLS in, and put a cheap residential link alongside it and run them together. So that might save you some money that way. But you can't just replace like an MPLS, like a 100 meg MPLS link with a 100 meg NBN TC4 link, because it's a whole lot cheaper, because it's what you're doing is you're replacing a corporate grade business link with a residential link. And that I'm guessing is the issue.
Maybe. I'll have a look at what links we've got going in.
I think links, if there's we can definitely spend some time with you if you want to go through that.
I'm on the SD-WAN crash course here.
Yeah, certainly, yes. But we can certainly cover that off, because there are a few additional components in there. From a design point of view, we are looking at the failover within the devices. Once we build the SD-WAN, we there's a concept called creating an overlay on top. So we have multiple links. We can create multiple overlays. Which prioritizes different links. Based on your use cases, right? So we can look at various points in there to make sure that you have the highest availability across certain elements in there. So happy to spend some time.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. We'll proceed to the next set of questions, and again, open to be interrupted and have questions live. Although we have some picked up questions kind of categorized. If one reads these questions, by the way, one would wonder why is it even in the same category? But there is a link between them. The first one was a question around is Azure environment a requirement for SD-WAN? Now the short answer is no. But what we assume why this question have come in the first place is SD-WAN projects usually in the pre or post phases usually have something to do with DC migrations. You're either decommissioning data centers. It's not rarely we have seen requirements and projects which are SD-WAN upgrade by itself, all by itself, and it does not link to any DC migration. Usually they come side by side. Sometimes it's pre or post phases. In some cases, we do recommend to go into Azure directly. One, because Logicalis is a Microsoft expert managed service partner for Azure. So our infrastructure as a service environment preference is in Azure. And the reason behind that is we have to align with cloud strategies coming from our clients that down the line within 12 months, we are eventually going to move our workloads into Azure, for example. In that case, we might take a decision to host our SD-WAN hub in Azure on day one, which will just give a smooth part of transition for your workloads in the coming future. So SD-WAN hub necessarily does not need to be in Azure. It can be hosted in your on-prem environment, co-location, and it can be depends on the architecture, depends on which vendor solution. So many factors are there. Short answer is no, but it is dependent, and we might take decisions well in advance that we actually say this is preferred or recommended for, based on the client environment to put SD-WAN hub on day one. So that's how we see.
Sorry, you go.
Oh yeah. Well, I'll just say on that. So what all these questions tie in together, right? And what is really cool about what Shoaib just touched on, and we've got to be careful we don't harp on because we get a bit excited here about SD-WAN. But one of the things that's really cool about SD-WAN is the hub conversation's changed. It's changed the way we engage clients. It's changed the way clients behave. In that traditionally you build from your data center out, right? So that's where your core is. When we start talking SD-WAN hubs, we can just move them. It doesn't matter. We can lift and shift them, especially if they're virtual. It's even easier. So if you've got a virtual SD-WAN hub and you want to do that on-prem and then move it into the data center legs and then go to Azure after that, we can do that. The other thing is, do we need hubs anymore? And that I think my personal opinion, I haven't spoken to these two boys about this, but my personal opinion is the requirement for hubs is diminishing. And the reason it's diminishing is, as Gihan touched on earlier, everything's moving to SaaS. So if we're moving to SaaS, and we do have some clients that are now 100% SaaS, they don't need a hub anymore. So that local internet breakout and the occasional site-to-site connectivity is all they need, in which case having that reliability and solid link conversation becomes less of a requirement again. So, I mean, from my perspective, SD-WAN gives you flexibility and visibility, which is something that you do not get from Mpls alone by itself.
Yeah. Now, just to add to that, you're spot on with that, because most of the organizations now moving to the in-branch heavy cloud kind of concept. So cloud doesn't mean that it's private cloud itself. It could be public cloud. It could be SaaS applications. All of them are basically living in the cloud, right? People can work from anywhere. So we've seen most organizations moving away from most of the infrastructure in certain cases. So now the terms like SASE, as an example, EC2 access, service edges, those concepts, are extension of the SD-WAN overlay, which makes sure that, all the users will get kind of similar experience when they work from various different places. Alongside, you get the same security policies that you define and apply as well. So it doesn't matter where you operate from. So you need to make sure your organization security policies have been applied across the board. Otherwise, the one weakest link would be the lowest hanging fruit for an intruder to come in and steal your data or to hack your systems, right? So that's just an extension. So I mean, so that'll move the concept from traditional hub-driven topologies into more like very flexible, agile kind of workforce. Yeah.
So I mean, just to continue on that point, and I told in the beginning when these 3 points are connected, onto that point where Chris and Gihan just mentioned, we don't need SD-WAN hub of that as a critical point in your network or WAN architecture anymore. And the reason for it, as a thought-provoking, if think about full mesh. When we say full mesh, all sites have connectivity to all other sites. All sites become equal. In that case, you can't even say which site is hub because you have similar sort of connectivity, similar sort of links. You might have different categories of sites, that's fine, but full mesh connectivity by itself takes the hub concept out of it. In comparison to hub and spoke topology. So these are two topologies, and the second question, I must admit the second part of that second question, I have included that from my side because I know most of us on the call know that SD-WAN can't be directly compared to Mpls just because one is a transport protocol and the other is a solution. But I assume what the question was when we compare SD-WAN and Mpls, is it like a full mesh? Would it give me a full mesh topology? Would it give me a hub and spoke topology, or an ability to do partial wherever I can, or have some sort of network segmentation? So in that case, the outcome is to have a full mesh. It's all built as an overlay. And the third part why I said it's disconnected is because till date, we have been sizing our edge devices primarily based on throughputs. If it's a router, maybe packets per second. If there was any security feature onto those WAN edge devices, we would go into number of users, sessions, firewall throughput. But there is an interesting factor which we are starting to see, and that is the number of concurrent VPN tunnels a device can handle, and also the VPN throughput. Because when we talk about overlays, what are these overlays? These are encrypted channels. These are, in traditional, simple terms, these are VPNs. And these two factors have now become like a primary sizing factor for us. Not many clients do actually even think about it, but it becomes critical. So regardless whether you have 5 users or 10 users or 50 users, if you want to have a full mesh topology, for example, then your sizing changes. So that third question was a very interesting one, like how do we approach or actually size the appliance? But now we see that's an additional factor where we have to consider. So not only user-based, not only throughput-based, but few other additional things have come up.
Yeah, just on that though, like in most cases, I guess when you touch the segmentation component, that's segmentation goes into the security. How are you going to categorize various different applications, users, could be servers, so that they live in their different buckets of lives, rather trying to stay in the same bucket. Because if they're in the same bucket, they'll obviously able to, cross, pollinate and, they mix up, and there's no boundary, there's no border, right? So having the segmentation helps to have that wall in between when they try to talk to each other. Yes, there is a wall that they can't get through. So SD-WAN, the good thing with the most of the SD-WAN solutions is once you define SD-WAN, based on firewall appliances, most of the SD-WAN solutions, are like traditionally based on firewalls. Firewall concept is there as the downstream, so which you provision your networks into different segments, which means in different buckets, and then the same security controls can be applied within the cloud if you want to extend into the cloud as well. So, across the board, you will have some sort of a segmentation, and which will prevent most of the attacks from happening as well. So, lateral movement. Yeah. So I think we are actually right on time as well.
We're still got 5 minutes, man. But I think Josh, did you have a question? I think Ollie just mentioned you might have had a question. No.
If it's me, Josh, no, I don't.
No, okay, all good. No, so someone said you had a question. All good. One thing I will touch on, and yeah, we're running out of time. I get that, but just tying in Shoaib and Gihan's points there about scoping and sizing, and people often start talking about security. You could talk for an hour about security and SD-WAN because there's so many different ways to skin a cat, but the way that we've kind of designed our intelligent connectivity solution uses multiple vendors. And the reason it does that, again, tying into Shoaib's point, is we've got to start talking about scoping the sizing of boxes. That can work on multiple factors, right? So if you start, let's say you use a firewall vendor and you do local internet breakout, You probably don't need a box. You probably need a larger box if you're going to start doing things like SSL inspection and you're going to start doing local threat prevention. If you then move to a SASE architecture, you don't necessarily need a firewall vendor to do your SD-WAN box. So your boxes could be smaller because all they're doing is shipping traffic to the SASE platform, and that's then doing the input. So, and you've got everything in between. So I'm not going to go into any more detail than that.
Yeah.
And that's Gihan's area. He loves it. But there's so many things to consider. So you could end up with really small boxes on site doing a full mesh, or you could do some large boxes on a couple of sites and do hub and spoke. But yeah, every client's requirements are different.
I mean, yeah, that's a good point though, because you know, we can't really, you know, have a cookie cutter kind of template for SD-WAN or any network solutions. Most of them are based on what we discover with the clients. You know, we engage with them. You know, we understand your requirements and design it accordingly. You know, in the end, what matters is, you know, having the same security controls and having the segmentation and making sure the end user is going to get the best experience they get. Liz, you got a question in there?
Sorry, I'm like, I've got questions.
No
So
problem.
my organisation is taking a sizing approach to how we're going to roll out SD. They're calling it SD branch. I call it SD-WAN. And I guess I'm just listening to what you're saying there. Maybe that's not going to be the best approach. Like because we're trying to we are trying to cookie cutter. In essence, a size site, this size site will get this. A HA site will get this. This size link. Some will get redundancy, some won't.
Okay, I would answer that.
Yeah, go.
So the sizing or categorizing approach is still a recommended approach because you still have some sort of you know, a combination of few factors which you will put as your primary factor and create those categories. The difference, the point which we were trying to make was if you, for example, at this phase, and we have seen many clients for commercial reasons, let's say, not being able to do the SD-WAN or SASE projects together. One thing which we don't want is to overlook or completely ignore what's coming up in the future, and leave some room in terms of sizing on day one. Now, if we know that SASE is not something where we want to go in the next 3 years, then we size the solution. That would make a difference. But if we know SASE is just 12 months down the line, then we kind of cater that into our sizing from now. That's the only thing. Else, the approach, you know, having categories and rollout is okay, I would say, because we don't know. But it's also tying to our next question. But I guess if we have time,
I'm just going to quickly jump in and Liz, I'll oversimplify this for you just to make it like really clear. So SD-WAN is just the edge appliance and the connectivity out. SD branch then incorporates all of your LAN infrastructure, so your switches and your wireless access points.
Of course, yep, gotcha.
So your SD branch is kind of a holistic view of WAN and LAN. Now, it doesn't include, that's a really simplified way of looking at it.
No,
but
that helps me. That helps me because I'm like, I'm like, it's WAN, but my colleagues are like, no, it's branch, and I'm like, well, for me, it's WAN.
Yeah, and SD branch, like we're big fans here, and again, there's multiple different ways you can skin this cat, and we could talk about it for hours on end, but we've got multiple vendors we work with for different reasons. They all have different use cases, so you can't, as Gihan mentioned, and one thing that is our biggest burden at Logicalis, to be honest, is we struggle to standardize things from our side. So when he was talking about standardizing, it's from us going to market. We can't just say this will suit everyone because it doesn't. But what your organization has tried to do with categorizing sites makes complete sense, and that's kind of how we would approach it.
Yes.
Cool. Cool. Thank you.
Cool. I think we'll bang on time.
Resume from here.
We can do next time if you want. Holly, what do you want us to do? Holly, you there?
I am there. Thank you very much. Look, we're going to send out a email communication after this, just with, I guess, if you have any further questions or you'd like to speak to the team further to discuss anything today, then you're welcome to do that. But otherwise, you'll receive that shortly. Otherwise, we look forward to seeing you at the next episode next month. But thank you very much, and thank you for the questions. Terrific. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.
That was bad.